for joining me on my presentation on recruitment of physical therapists by myself, Ashley Macia. Our physical therapy office located in Massachusetts has been searching for new therapists for several months. With 2 of our current therapists out on maternity leave, our waitlists for new patients continue to grow. It's essential to understand the factors contributing to our recruitment challenges so we can maintain workflow, meet patient demand, and protect revenue. Continuing to turn patients away or placing them on an extended wait list reduces income and negatively impacts the overall performance of the practice. The overall question I want to address are what labor market factors are contributing to our ongoing difficulty in hiring physical therapists. To understand the labor market factors contributing to difficulty hiring physical therapists, I selected 4 state-level variables that capture wage competitiveness, workforce availability, geographic concentration, and affordability. Together, they help explain external conditions shaping PT recruitment challenges. These variables are also known as average annual salary, employment level, location quotient, or LQ, and cost of living index, or COLI. The variable I will be discussing is average annual salary. The variable type is continuous, and the level of measurement is ratio. Salary is a primary driver of job choice. If our wages are below the average in competing states, physical therapists may be drawn to higher paying markets. This variable helps determine whether compensation is a barrier to recruitment. It indicates how competitive physical therapy wages are across states, and it helps assess whether our compensation aligns with market expectations. As you can see by the graph I provided, Massachusetts has one of the highest average annual salaries across the nation. PT salaries vary widely across states, but most fall into the low to mid $80,000 range. A slight right skew indicated by the mean and median tells us that a few high-paying states raises the overall average. The median best represents the typical PT salary since it avoids distortion from high salary outliers. PTs may be drawn toward higher salary states. Massachusetts has the highest PT salary in the dataset, making it one of the most competitive PT labor markets. The salary range on our job posting of $80,000 to $100,000 falls below the state average, limiting our ability to attract candidates who expect higher wages. Even at the top of our range, many PTs in MA can earn more elsewhere, directly contributing to our hiring challenges. My second variable is employment level. This is a discrete variable, and it measures at the ratio level. Employment level measures the size of PT workforce in each state. It reflects overall labor supply and potential candidate availability. It helps us understand the pool of candidates we're recruiting from. Employment level is estimated by the number of wage and salary PTs in each state based on employer reporting and staffing counts collected through the Occupational Employment and Wage Statistics Survey. PT employment levels vary widely across states, with a strong right skew caused by a few very large states. The typical state has a small PT workforce, around 3,800, and 3/4 of states have fewer than 7,500 PTs. Since employment levels are heavily right skewed, the median best represents the typical state's PT workforce and avoids distortion from very large states. Massachusetts is above the 3rd quartile, placing it among states with the largest PT workforces. However, the high employment reflects a high competition market where organizations are competing for the same talent, which contributes to our ongoing challenge in hiring PTs. The third variable is location quotient, or LQ. This is a continuous variable, and the level of measurement is ratio. LQ shows the concentration of PTs relative to the national average. It identifies states with PT shortages or surpluses that affect recruitment difficulty. LQ compares the concentration of PTs in a state to the national concentration using the formula listed below. If LQ equals 1, then the state has the same concentration of PTs as the national average. If LQ is greater than 1, PTs are more concentrated in that state. If LQ is less than 1, PTs are less concentrated in that state. My dataset shows LQ values cluster tightly around 1.0, with a slight right skew caused by a few high concentration states. Both the mean and the median accurately represent the typical PT concentration across states. Massachusetts LQ of 1.06 indicates a slightly above average concentration of PTs, meaning the state has a healthy supply of providers. However, because Massachusetts is a high-demand, high-salary market, PTs have many employment options and expect compensation above our current range. Our hiring challenges are driven not by low supply, but by strong competition and higher statewide wage expectations. My last variable is the cost of living index, or COLI. This is a continuous variable, and its level of measurement is ratio. The COLI is a composite index based on the relative prices of housing, groceries, utilities, transportation, healthcare, and miscellaneous goods. Each category is weighted according to the national consumer spending patterns. The combined score is scaled so that 100 equals the national average. Cost of living, or COL, affects how attractive a salary feels in real terms. It's basically how far a PT salary goes in each state. It influences PT mobility, job acceptance, and the perceived wage competitiveness. How to interpret the index. If the index equals 100, it's exactly the average cost of living. If the index is greater than 100, it's more expensive than the national average. If the index is less than 100, it's less expensive than the average. As you can see in the graph, Massachusetts has one of the highest cost of living indexes. The COLI is strongly right skewed, with few very expensive states like Massachusetts driving up that average. The median best represents the typical state's cost of living to avoid distortion. Massachusetts falls in the highest cost group, meaning PTs face significantly higher living expenses and expect higher wages. The high COL directly contributes to our difficulty attracting PT candidates within our current salary range. As you saw from my 4 variables, I used 4 choropleth maps. The choropleth maps clearly highlight state-level differences in PT salary, employment level, LQ, and COLI. Using the same format across all 4 variables makes patterns easy to compare. Since all variables are geographic, a map provides a meaningful and intuitive visual representation. My next step is developing a hypothesis. The question I want to answer: does cost of living influence physical therapy wages? My null hypothesis is that there is no difference in PT wages across low, medium, and high cost of living states. The alternate hypothesis is that there is a difference in PT wages in at least one cost of living group. This helps if high cost of living states pay significantly more, but we do not. This can be a factor in our hiring challenges. I listed below how I will group the cost of living states. And I will test the hypothesis using an ANOVA single factor test with a significance level of 0.05. If the p-value is less than 0.05, I will reject the null hypothesis, and that means there is a significant difference. If the p-value is greater than or equal to 0.05, I fail to reject the null hypothesis and there is no significant difference detected. 2 authoritative sources support my hypothesis that cost of living predicts PT salary. The American Physical Therapy Association, or APTA, income report shows that PT wages vary significantly by geographic region, with higher salaries in the high cost of living index states. The Bureau of Labor Statistics wage data similarly demonstrate substantial geographic wage differences that align with cost of living patterns. Ran the ANOVA, and the results show that the p-value is less than 0.05, so we reject the null hypothesis, which means physical therapy wages do differ significantly across low, medium, and high cost of living states. This means that salary differences are not random, they are systematically related to cost of living. States with higher cost of living index tend to offer higher PT wages, indicating that compensation levels adjust in response to regional economic conditions. Because Massachusetts is a high COLI state, it falls into the group with significantly higher wages. Our salary range of $80,000 to $100,000 is below what PTs expect in a high cost of living index market. The statistical result supports the conclusion that our hiring challenges are driven by wage competitiveness. Next, I ran a linear regression with PT salary as the dependent variable and cost of living as the independent variable. This model quantifies how cost of living predicts salary and directly supports our hiring challenge by showing whether our current salary range is competitive in a high COLI state like Massachusetts. The hypothesis I chose with this test, the null hypothesis, is cost of living does not predict PT salary. My alternate hypothesis, cost of living does predict PT salary. The results showed that COLI is a statistically significant predictor of salary since the p-value is less than 0.05. The slope indicates that PT salaries increase as COL increases, meaning that high COLI states pay substantially more. This supports the conclusion that Massachusetts' high COL contributes to higher statewide PT wages, and our current salary range is not competitive in this market. Next, I ran a multiple regression test to see how the employment level, location quotient, and cost of living predicts PT salaries. This will provide insight on what factors drive PT salaries across states and if Massachusetts falls into a high-pressure labor market. I've shown my results from the test. As you can see, only cost of living and employment level are shown. This is due to the location quotient having a higher p-value than 0.05 and higher the employment level. I reran the test and the employment level was still above 0.05. So I left that one on the slide to present my findings. Here are my more in-depth results from my multiple regression test. I tested employment level, LQ, and COLI as predictors of PT salary. Employment level and LQ were not significant, meaning they don't predict salary since they had a p-value greater than 0.05. COLI was the only variable with a significant p-value. I removed non-significant variables and retained COLI as the sole predictor. This confirms that cost of living is the primary driver of PT wages across states. I also found that R squared equals 0.21, meaning that 21% of the PT salaries across states is explained by COLI. The remaining 79% may be due to other factors not considered, such as benefits, state regulations, competition, etc. Since Massachusetts has one of the highest cost of living index values, PTs expect higher wages. Our current salary range is below market expectation, contributing to our hiring challenges. The dataset revealed substantial variation of PT salaries, employment levels, cost of living, and workforce concentration across states. The ANOVA test showed a statistically significant difference in PT wages across low, medium, and high cost of living index states, with a p-value less than 0.05, confirming that cost of living is meaningfully associated with salary levels. The linear regression demonstrated that COLI significantly predicts PT salary with an R squared of 0.21. This indicates that cost of living explains a meaningful portion of salary variation, supporting the conclusion that high COLI states consistently pay higher wages. The multiple regression model initially included COLI, employment level, and LQ. Only COLI remained significant, while employment level and LQ had p-values above 0.05 and did not contribute explanatory power. This shows that salary differences are driven primarily by cost of living rather than workforce size or PT concentration. Since Massachusetts has one of the highest COLI values, PT expect higher wages. These findings indicate that Massachusetts' high COLI places it in a higher wage labor market. Because our current salary range falls below the state average, wage competitiveness is a primary factor contributing to our hiring challenges. Analysis shows that the cost of living is the primary driver of PT salary differences across the United States, and Massachusetts falls in one of the highest cost of living index categories. PT salaries in high cost of living states are significantly higher, with our current range only $80,000 to $100,000 below the state average. This misalignment reduces our competitiveness in a crowded labor market where many organizations compete for the same talent. To improve recruitment, leadership should consider adjusting the PT salary range to better reflect a high cost of living market condition, or offering alternative incentives such as sign-up bonuses, loan repayment support, CEU reimbursement, or flexible scheduling. Aligning compensation with market expectation will strengthen our ability to attract and retain PTs, reduce workflow strain, and support consistent patient care and delivery.